familiar with what we did in our career, let's put it like that. So we agreed that we are going to be asked to some questions. So,
hi Tom, you hear me? No, I'm a little deaf already because in my age I hear maybe 60%, so maybe I didn't hear everything so precisely. But well, Borut mentioned we are coming from Slovenia, the ex-Yugoslav Republic, which is now a state, and the difference is that, for instance, in Turkey, if I know a little bit the situation, almost everything is private. In Slovenia, everything is public. So we already have something to learn from each other. Maybe we have to mix these two principles together to get more possibilities. But basically, when we talk about public art, when we talk about art system, we should keep in consideration that there are crucial differences in places like Western Europe, where the differences within the Western Europe, but there are very specific situations also in Eastern Europe, in Turkey. For instance, if in some places already too much institutions or over-institutionalization, we are having lack of institutions. As Borut once said in one text, he said, we are expecting from institutions to play institutions, to be real, solid institutions, and to do their duty, basically. So I think it's, maybe also I can mention just for the context, and maybe it's good to ask you, because we just landed somehow. We just landed and we didn't know what to talk on Tuesday, we didn't know what to talk on Wednesday. We are just here. So I could also mention that IRWIN was aware from the beginning that just to produce art is not enough if you're living in the space where art system is not developed, so in a way we started to deal with issues, to ask ourselves questions, what can be done? Reflected, and you are aware that we have to help as artists building also elements of our system. If we would like to live and work in the space of Slovenia or wider context of Eastern Europe, and from very early on, from the 90s, from the end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s, we were asked in the end of the 80s to move to maybe outside, especially the United States, and we say, okay, we will come and visit with the project, but we'll keep on the space, because if everybody would leave the space you work, will become a cultural desert in a way. So we started to work on different projects. You know, if you're interested, we can tell you later. But basically, I just wanted to stress that there are differences that it's not possible to talk about general about art system or public art, but we have to take in consideration that the difference I meant. Thank you.
One of the issues that came up in the first day, on Tuesday, when we talked about public art, was permission. The authorised, the unauthorised. I think I was interested in asking you, how does that sit with your work over those decades? This idea of giving yourself permission to initiate your own work, and has it been important to feel that some of the work that you've done is unauthorised, and have you been commissioned as well?
I'm really pleased that you asked this question, because it's fundamental for not only for IRWIN, but for whole NSK, I would say. We were lucky enough that we were not authorized by anybody. In fact, here lies one of key elements upon which IRWIN and NSK was basically built upon. And fact is, here is necessary to stress that this field was initially opened by Laibach. They were the one who tested the territory. So they tested the borders of what was not so much, this was connected, it was intertwined, so artistically and politically at that moment, completely. So certain trespasses in the field of artistic meant at the same moment that they were not accepted by political field as well. And they would be, and it happened before, sanctioned by politics. So they did moves that for such moves in previous even years, people would be sentenced. Let's put it like that, and they were not, and that was, I would say, incredible enough. That opened the possibility of entering this space. It was materially space being opened by that. And that's the space where we entered as well. IRWIN entered in that space, not only us. And maybe it's necessary to stress that all of us, in fact, we were part of something at that moment was called alternative scene. And it was pretty strong scene and very diversified. So entire, later on to become NSK was part of that scene, let's put it like that. And certain questions in that scene were discussed not only by us, but were shared with others as well. So, but it's maybe too long story. But what was, and if the whole scene somehow negated or was suspicious about official art scene, was somehow distanced from it in a way. It was in our case that the division was total. Let's put it like that. That we declared institutions, existing institutions of Slovene and Yugoslav art scene as absolutely incompetent. So we declared them as basically non-relevant for our point of view. So for us, here comes very important distinction to alternative scene. We couldn't accept the position that to be alternative was, from our point of view, there was nothing to be alternative to. No. It was us and that was it, and point. And what was the trick? We decided that we are not going to two things, very practical things. First, that we need critical mass to resist this feedback, which were young but not so naive, still naive but not naive enough to believe that there is not going to be any clashback. And second, so critical mass was necessary, and second, what was our concrete aim was to establish direct communication with the international art scene, because it was obvious to us that Slovene and Yugoslav scene was closed into borders of first Slovenia and second Yugoslavia. Very interesting, but it's another story. Just to finish the whole story. So these were basically. It's possible to say that NSK was a kind of alliance based on total disbelief to our system of Slovenia, with the interest to establish one-to-one direct communication on our own with international art scene. Okay, for the beginning.
Maybe we could say this, that we come into the clash in that time in Yugoslavia with basically the state alternative art scene, because our position was not against institutions, but we know better functional institutions. For instance, it's like with a language. If you destroy the meaning of words and the grammar, if you act against the institution of language, you basically cannot communicate. So basically, in the time of punk, when there were movements, alternative against everything, against state, we were a little bit strange, you know. And then, as Borut said, you know, maybe just anecdote, you know, when Borut said when we recognized that there is no functional institution who could connect us, you know, basically to external world, we acted, you know, we just invited ourselves to Venice Biennale, without Venice Biennale, and we appeared there and posted in Venice with official posters, and that's how we showed our work, you know. We said nobody would come to Slovenia to look for us, you know, so we have to go outside and invite ourselves. That was it, you know.
But you were, in effect, then choosing to participate in a another existing institution, which was the Contemporary Art Market and its associated gallery sector and exhibitions and everything else. So you made, so you made a choice. So what happened then, if those were the beginnings and there was a sort of sense in which you were establishing yourselves and your practice, how then were you then assimilated into other institutions? And what happened in Slovenia when actually you started to become mainstream?
First of all, it's a question, what is Slovenian mainstream? What is Slovenian means from outside of Slovenia? This is one question. And the second of all, of course, we have been included in different understreams and mainstreams, all the time. So basically, even the questions of the art system is very different, Like, I don't know, system of once there was an Austrian curator who said, you don't know how good it is that you don't have art galleries and so on. But I said, if you wish that it's so good, why you don't abolish art galleries? He said, no, for us it's good, but for you it's better. So, I mean, can you imagine this? This is kind of double standard, somehow. For us, it was normal. I mean, for us, the market was nothing else than communication, because market is older than capitalism. Market is something, even in our language, we say Turk, which means a small city. It means that you meet and exchange. So basically, we were not interested in this kind of moralistic aspects of this debate, But basically, basically when we entered communication, we were, even now, we are working with Slovenian institutions as we are working outside. So it's a part of the work, it's a part of our profession.
Just to take, what happened in 2012? Were you part of the protests as an institution?
In Slovenia?
Or as individuals? Or what happened in 2012?
Yeah.
Also, I think the museum also was part of it.
Yeah.
And is there
Maybe I can. You can tell.
Just technically, we did it for peculiar reason. In fact, it was basically public or people didn't get what we really did there. In fact, it was an art project. In fact, it was an action in a line of actions done on the base of poster that we encountered with in Lagos, where we went for particular reasons, because our passports, we are issuing passports, were very demanded goods from people from Lagos, people from Nigeria. So
people are using our passport in Africa, NSK passport.
Really complex story.
Yeah.
So what I want to say, we entered dressed as IRWIN, so on public appearances, on particular occasions, we are dressed properly in dresses, like Sunday dresses, let's put it like that. And we went there with posters, which were versions of the same poster from Lagos. And what was the poster for Lagos telling to people in Nigeria? Poster was telling, time for a new state. Some say you can find happiness there. And it paralleled basically their wish to get to NSK because they believed it offers better possibilities than Nigeria itself. Basically, it was designed by Coca-Cola that we found later on, and even people from Nigeria didn't know what this poster was standing for. So we entered these protests with poster designed by Coca-Cola, and when we entered it, some of them said, better design.
Yeah. People were not sure who we are on the demonstration because we had evening dress and ties, And they asked me from television, what are you doing? He said, we're not commenting this. And some people asked, what this is about? And some of us said, we are bankers and we are protesting because we didn't get enough the certain payment this year, or things like that. So people were not sure who we are somehow, But if you ask already,
you asked for a particular event, and we made photo. It was necessary for making photo.
We have photo with us, but it takes time.
It doesn't tell what we meant as persons about these events in Slovenia at that time. But the fact is that IRWIN never demanded from members of IRWIN to have equal opinion about events, of kind of up-to-date politics.
I would say also, I would even go further and say that, just because you mentioned already, that we never speak positivistic, direct political language of everyday life.
But here is necessary to say something. What you post are very substantial questions. In fact, as far as I remember, Miran is right. We accepted the logic of art market, but later on, at the beginning, we were absolutely suspicious about it. Suspicious from obvious positions, not only from socialist system that we were brought kind of basically educated in it, but by the logic of conceptual art as well. So we were suspicious about that. It was Jürgen Harten, in the discussion
German curator, yeah,
with whom we somehow accepted some of his standpoints, at least me. I remember very well what he told us on this question. We discussed about this question, about gallery system. And he, at least to me, explained, or he was the one who explained me some kind of levels of this gallery system that were acceptable to me later on. There is, in fact, there is another aspect of that which is extremely important. It's true, we never fought against it. But fact is that we were lucky enough that we were never embraced by it. This was really what happened to us.
This was a gift of time to us.
This was a gift of time. We were never accepted by art system. Not in international, to a certain extent, yes, by some museums and so on. And never in Slovenia. So, what in fact happened to us? Something which is very unusual. That one system played somehow against another. At least in Slovenia, international system played against being successful in local one, or being at least understood as part of local system. That's, by the way, what happened to Marina Abramović and Braco Dimitrijević. In 80s, they were not understood as integral part of Yugoslav art. They were not understood as that in 70s already, but I remember how it was in 80s. You know, I was too young before. So they were part of international art world, not Yugoslav. So it was kind of protective reflex of the system. You know? And international system didn't follow us. Simple as that. We were probably too, I don't know, clumsy, you know, too primitive for the system.
But maybe something here, you know. We deliberately decided to stay, you know, and we were completely aware that staying in Slovenia, in Eastern Europe, is like staying on a gold mine, that we have something what other doesn't have, that here the history can be created. It's something what is the potentiality. So we felt I was very privileged because of it. You know. So that's, you know, that was, I mean, this will go to a longer story. We were involved in projects, as I said at the beginning, related to the art system of Eastern Europe from the beginning of the 90s, and we finished this project somehow with a project East Art Map, which some of you maybe know. I know that Vasim knows and doesn't agree. The Turkey is not in, but never mind. You know, we explained him 10 times, and he said, "Who cares?" But okay. So basically, we
Vasim is right from certain point.
We have been involved in many activities, and our decision to stay where we are, it was very bright, because now you can see situation is very much changing. Now the new globality, what Vasim said in the typhoon party, we had a typhoon party in Taipei, Republic of China, when he said that the new globality will be composed from localities. If I remember, maybe I change a little bit, you know, but basically we understood that staying this, it means that we have a very good position for connecting ourselves or with other places. If you don't have your own ground, you can't connect. You are overjumped. Okay, so maybe go too far to this, but yeah.
Maybe I can add something to this as well, but because it is interconnected. In fact, we went to USA first. We succeeded to escape gravitation field of Slovenia by moving to New York in late 80s. And we had a gallery in New York and we had a flat there.
Two flats.
Two flats. Even.
Because we were stupid. We rented two. We didn't know how it works.
Yeah. So, but you know what happened to us? Something really unusual. Something I must say I didn't expect. We found out that the set of topics that was discussed by artists that we bumped into in New York at that time was not exactly the same as the set of topics that was interesting for us. That there was kind of slight shift in teams that were chosen, that were preferred by them. So we found out that, of course, it was possible for us to somehow get into discussion, but it was not really our discussion. And with the crisis in beginning of 90s...
Can I just ask you can you qualify that for us? So what was different about the...
Frankly speaking, for that, I would really need to go into nuances, and it's far away for that, but okay, it would be difficult now, to really qualify it precisely. But you know what happened with the shift of the system? The system seriously changed for us. So the system of how to act, how to be an artist, being a Slovene in this particular time. So we found ourselves kind of out of balance, let's put it like that, at that moment, with these serious changes in the beginning of 90s. And as we didn't find the people to communicate this position of ours in USA with, we thought that to turn east would probably would have sense. Of course, in the focus of ours at that time was to get, and before was not possible in getting communication with Russians, or very, very difficult, for instance, because the system prevented this was not easy. Of course, illegally it was possible to do it, but it didn't exist many connections. So we tried to find somebody with whom we could discuss the situation we were found in. So somebody who used to have at least similar experience, and they did it. Not only that in Moscow, it was based for Embassy Moscow, very practical, very concrete. So Embassy Moscow was based upon trying to establish one-to-one communication with Moscow art scene, and we did it. Embassy Moscow was a meeting point for 1 month in between Moscow art scene, basically conceptual art scene, but others were present as well, and between NSK.
Yeah.
92, yeah, 92, yeah. So that was basically this really important shift, and that was the base why then we found out that East might have some sense, because we had some experience of the West already. You know what was the trick of the, I know about Slovene and Yugoslav art scene, that everybody in beginning of 90s with these changes tried to go West, because mostly they didn't have experience with. They believed that there is where to go.
Yes.
And East was, for instance, when we tried to get money.
Everybody go West,
Everybody went west, absolutely everybody.
Yeah.
So we were probably the only ones in Yugoslavia who went east. And when we tried to get money for that move, we were openly declared as kind of stupids, why to go somewhere where there is no art. That was absolutely openly claimed at that moment by people who were professors of art history, for instance.
I mean, we were completely aware when we that if we go there, we are dealing with a space which is immense, which is almost half of the world. But the avant-garde artists, we knew a little bit about the art scene, And we were also joking. We were saying, Together with IRWIN, with Russians, we are over 160 millions, you know.
But this is an old joke, you know.
Yeah.
It's available for Montenegrians, not for
Yes,
Slovenes.
of course, you know. No, basically, you know, this is very, very general, but just maybe for the context, Borut mentioned the NSK embassy in Moscow. Just 2 sentences for the students who maybe doesn't know. In '92, we come to Moscow and we live there on invitation by the Moscow artists and curators, and we in an apartment which was rented. We live there and discuss common issues, how the East sees the East, how we see ourselves in the future for 1 month, and after that we publish the book.
But then, in terms of like even today's topic, Interpol would be the kind of the next moment of friction.
Yes.
In terms of the kind of collusion of art scenes.
Yes. Yes. You mentioned Interpol, the exhibition. Yeah. I mean, we were there. We were also part of this show. You know. Do you want to comment on this or no? No.
Yeah, but maybe you.
No.
I wasn't there.
No. Yeah, if you're in.
It's.
Maybe I can say a little bit, because it's interesting, because we talk about these different contexts. And I mean, in the '96, there happened a big exhibition, relatively big, not too big, well, but relatively
serious
big.
project.
Serious project of artists from Russia and Sweden who would invite other artists. The idea of this Interpol show was how to critically approach exhibition as a forum, as a medium.
On one hand.
On one hand, yeah. And then basically what it was, people who were invited invite other people, and then we had 2 meetings, one in Moscow, one in Sweden, and we agreed to relatively radical, I would say, but we agreed on radical possibilities that the whole show will be done as a collaboration. And this radicality of this collaboration would include also intervention in other work, exchange, and so on, physical acts, which sometimes would be violent, but we accepted this.
We accepted.
Yes, but when it in fact happened on this show happened a few days before. The Swedish curator Jan Åman decided that in the middle of this space would be just a beautiful exhibition, beautiful works of Van der Gu, the Chinese artist, without contacting anyone of the group. And there also was other details. Oleg Kulik, Russian artist, was coming to be invited to participate with another artist as a dog, and he was abandoned, so he has to do it by himself. You know, he was the dog on the show. And when the show opens, what happened is that Alexander Brenner protested and destroyed the Van der Gu show, but we agreed that there should be intervention. And Oleg Kulik, a Russian artist, was alone, and they bought him very long chain, and people were sipping beer on his head, so he buys 3 Swedish guys. And police came and wanted to arrest the dog, you know, and Brenner was, one work was destroyed. It was like a Russian-Swedish war. Everything was in the yellow press and so on. But it was a body of the conflict of East and West somehow. So then then a group of people, and I think was run by one guy who was doing a magazine, Purple Prose.
Oliver Zahn.
Oliver Zahn made a petition against Russians, and they were always accused to be like a Nazi, but they were all Jewish, you know. So it was difficult to be Jewish and the Nazis. There was another.
They were accused to be fascists only the first day.
Yeah, the first day. Yeah,
this was changed later on to vandals, something like that.
So this was the picture, you know. There was the picture, you know, and basically, if I understand, this show also became a kind of curatorial study in Bard College, even, you know. Well, I heard for somebody, I don't know.
So you know the show.
So yeah.
Maybe I can add some few words. Probably if all of you don't know the show, it was curatorially very, very interestingly conceptualized. Basically, it was the show agreed upon in between 2 curators, Victor Misiano on one side and Jan Åman on another. And each of these 2 curators selected, I don't know, 10 or a number of Victor Russian artists and Jan Swedish artists. And each of these selected artists could select any artist disregardingly where he is from. So that's how we get into the picture. We were a selection of Vadim Fishkin.
Yeah, Moscow.
And then 2 years, they organized meetings in between artists to discuss and get to the conclusion how the show is going to look like. In fact, the artists were the ones who discussed. Both selectors pulled out of this discussion. And I must tell you that some of these gatherings were really beautiful. You know, some really beautiful performances. One was done by Alexander Brenner. You know, was done for us in Moscow on this occasion. So, what was at the base of that show? It was a kind of pilot project discussed to be included in Manifesta 1 as a proof that collaboration on this level between East and West is possible. And what happened at the end? That open clash happened at the opening. It was beautiful, in fact, because okay, there are nuances and details which were really fantastic. It happened in Stockholm with 15 degrees and more below zero, you know, when the sky was bluish and the bay was frozen. So we worked there, I don't know, for 2 weeks or what. You know, nothing functioned because in between this schisma between East and West grew, get bigger and bigger. So at the end, it happened that all works by Western artists were executed perfectly by these standards of how it should be.
Institutional standards.
Yeah, of course. But the eastern part were left behind, you know, because the nucleus of the crash, you know where it was. It was really interesting. That Swedish, they had opinion about Russians that they are simply clumsy, you know, that they know to speak but not to work, and they proved it. You know. And on the other side, Russians, they believe that Swedish, they can only work, but they don't have concepts, you know, they are boring. That was the situation. That was the division line. And it basically resulted in what it resulted. And of course, we were suspicious about this possibility of proving that there is this collaboration possible on this exemplary level. You know, basically we were there as kind of observers. That was our task. And this project of us was then at the end finished in a form of publication. That's it, you know, which was published by Moscow Art Magazine by Victor Misiano, and on our side by Eda Čufar. Published by us, but edited by Eda Čufar.
If you're going too far from your topic, please stop us and do a turn. You know.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a question. Can you say something, if it's possible for you to say something about your choice of artistic method, or the way you work? I mean, Yugoslavia in 1983, what was the artistic answer to that specific situation? And what, have you changed your mind, or how do you change your practice according to your outside, you know, circumstances? Or?
Maybe you could just start, yeah.
Yeah, this is the question related to what we discussed a little bit before. Yeah, it was something called retro that it's in the base of this common for all three groups that established NSK. Even if this word retro is connected then differently to three terms that were defined in this first period, and funnily enough, that looking at them retrospectively, they actually brought with them specificities according to how they were, maybe not so much how they were understood at this initial moment, but how they were developed through time. But and retro was related to, in fact, in our case, directly to Kazimir Malevich from Belgrade. It's a very interesting artist that he influenced all of us, you know, all three groups, and one of these three groups was IRWIN, another was Laibach, third was Theatre of Scipion Narsike. And he, in fact, himself was part of Yugoslav conceptual art. He was younger generation of conceptual artists from from Belgrade, still active, and I think that he's a very serious artist. We are still in really good relations with him, and I must say personally I respect his work very much. So what was that? Now I can speak for IRWIN, because there were differences in how this was implemented and how it was understood. We understood it as a rejection of what young artists are, at least what I as young artist looked for or tried to somehow get into. A kind of this subjective in confrontation of institutions way of producing what at that time? Images. It was 80s, deep in 80s. You know, I still remember how serious fascination, for instance, with Anselm Kiefer's work or something like that. It was based on level of senses. This very direct transfer. I understand it very well. So our question was how to somehow cut off, completely negate this type of transfer, which is absolutely impossible to escape it as being young artist introduced into institution through this channel, through Art Academy. So what happened with this first phase, and negation was based, or this kind of clear enough of terrain was based on acceptance of just the opposite of subjectivization. It was copy. But even we knew that we didn't even start it with it. It was Malevich from Belgrade who started with copies. So that was, on that level was the base of it. And this gets a kind of mirror picture in the fact that we renounced our names, personal names. So here we were 4 persons at the beginning, 6 at a certain moment, and then 5 that renounced to use personal names in relation to images. And when I still remember when we did first these images and when we installed them on the wall, some of them are going to be exhibited here on that show. Still with us, yes. Just to finish, you know what happened because of particular decisions, of course, but that none of us, we couldn't identify with what we saw on the wall. It was really interesting sensation. It was really foreign to us. This common thing on the wall, neither of us could identify with. Even I remember one of, I don't know who, said, okay, one of these paintings he decided which one was that, I forgot it, but he said, I simply cannot, it's too much. I cannot exhibit it. And then others offered himself. He said, okay, I'm going to exchange it with one of mine. Bargain done at that moment. But exactly that kind of completely cleared up terrain was a base for it. And this base was grounded in the fact that we somehow understood and even proclaimed it, Slovenian art production as true and true eclectic. And that this eclectic position should be acknowledged. That was our standpoint. And we did it. We personally did it.
Yeah, maybe I can just start from what it said, you know, in a way, in a way, I became too homey. In a way, it's, when Boris mentioned copies of, I mean, he mentioned Malevich from Belgrade, who was doing copies of Kazimir Malevich. And basically, Yugoslav and Slovenian art was eclectic. In fact, a kind of non-reflective copy of other models. So the copy is involved, but in another level. So basically, we wanted to reflect this fact that when you are working in a kind of small space, cultural space, that you are kind of organically born as eclectic. Because, you know, many people, artists are eclectic, but everybody talks about originality of these artists, about their own kind of handwriting or whatever. And basically, where these artists are going over the board, nobody recognizes these artists anymore. So you would have artists who would look as a kind of Slovenian kind of reflection of arte power, not arte power, of Spanish art, Tapier, and so on. You know. So basically, we said we are eclectic by birth. And one of the first shows of IRWIN, I was not a member of IRWIN, I was in the army at the time, was back to USA. And on this, for you just to understand, on this exhibition, when one of the IRWINs saw this show and bring a catalog, other IRWIN members did exhibition of these works, but from the catalog, and show it in a gallery as an exhibition with the same name, Back to USA. This was an exhibition which was touring, I think, Europe in '93 or '94.
93
yeah.
to 94, yeah, in that period. Yeah.
Then go further back. What was also interesting was the situation that official style, beside a few artists who were like conceptualists whom you know from international world, Marina Abramovic, Vlasto Dimitrijevic, but not much others, official style in Yugoslavia was a kind of socialistic modernism. So it was a kind of modest version of modernism. Nobody called this at that time socialistic modernism. This is the term which was kind of accepted lately, like at the end of the 90s and now, in the last, let's say, 15 years, you know. So basically, you would have a style which was completely accepted. It was modest enough not to be coming kind of collision with any criticality and so on. And these were basically the work. Such works were done by our professors, and this was the space around us. So IRWIN comes exactly in this moment and make a cut. IRWIN was not a continuation, it was not a kind of transition, it was a break.
Maybe it's necessary to say that about this socialistic modernism, that's a term that was tried to be introduced by Bojana Pejic, and she did a doctoral thesis on it. Yes. You know, I don't know if it's really introduced as such generally.
Yeah.
Maybe we could. I think one of the things I would be really interested in hearing about now is. So you've talked about the degree of radicality, this kind of radical break in the process and in the practice and the conception of the work, and how you were perceived as individual artists, as a break with the kind of autonomy of the individual, the kind of cultural celebrity. How then, let's say in the last decade, has that played out? Because let's think, you know, this weekend you have a show that's half the market, that in a sense Owen is the celebrity now. Owen is the identified author of these series of works and interventions. So, have there been, we've been talking a lot in the last 3 days about kind of moments of reflection, adaptation, moments when you can kind of feel yourself becoming compromised and the integrity of the work becoming compromised. Can you give me an example in recent decade of the decision making that you're making?
Our decision making?
Yeah. About what you will or where you will or won't show, whether you accept an invitation or not, whether the work that you do is always self-initiated.
In fact, this, of course, is a very serious question again. I know it's and it tackles a really important part of decision-making done in IRWIN, which is usually not visible. It's basically how we regulate our interpersonal relations. You know, this is serious work, and it's a lot that would be possible to say about it. But because we really don't have time for all these stories, but. Yeah, I can say something generally. You know, what we are really, we were somehow, we took opportunity or they take advantage of certain aspects of being part of and developed regarding arts and art institutions and art system field. But first I need to say something else, something which somehow is related to what you discussed before. That maybe it's impossible. Maybe I'm wrong. You didn't want to put it in this way, but it's always this sensation, this possibility that in these discussions somehow you try to find a definitive answer to get to the substance of something. You know. So I think this is not the case, at least not in this aspect. So we are changing through time, and for sure are not the same and as radical as we were at the beginning. So we can be only, let's say, lucky not to fall prey to changes that are somehow necessary in our case as well. So, and I'm going to try to show it with another example, the example of extremely important line of conceptual art from, for instance, whole East. This is funny, but from former Yugoslavia, because I know it well. They would fall prey to art markets long before. It was not because of their heroism. It was because of circumstances that they could survive for 30 years completely unaffected. They obtained their integrity without problem. Can you imagine that? And I think it's necessary to introduce these facts, a serious fact, when you relate these to conceptual art from the West, from America. And in our case, it's very similar, you know. And that's what we stressed all the time. That exactly underdeveloped art system was something that gave us a kind of territory to maneuver in. So what we know it's hard to be art worker in Western Europe, in these developed territories. You don't know where to step. Huh? And not only that, where you are going to step, we can appropriate it. And here we come to retro without any problem. Because and here comes this what we call gold mine. We have free territory. We still have it. We still have time. Your artists don't have 30 years anymore. We had it.
Well, maybe I can just say also this, you know, that basically when we started, you know, we were working in the socialistic Yugoslavia, and we were saying for ourselves, we are state artists, you know, Yugoslav socialistic artists, and the state said, no, you are not. You are not. We are telling you are not. He said, yes, we are. We are. So
just wait a little bit.
Yeah, just wait a little bit. You will see that we are. We are state artists. We support you. We are for you. You know. And state said, no. They said, what's wrong here? We don't want you. You know. But we want you. You know. We want state. We want you. You know. And then the state collapsed. The whole the socialistic countries in Eastern Europe dissolved. The political system changed. And what we have to do? We, as an artist who didn't have anymore our own socialistic context, we have to create our own state. And we became a state artist of our own state. And somehow, many people were thinking at that time, not all, but some, that we are a kind of deconstruction of, I don't know, oppressed socialism and communism. But we are not. We were construction. We construct our own reality. And basically, the system of galleries, museums, is a part of the system. It's a part of the system which, if it doesn't exist, it must be constructed. And basically, a question about also this gallery here, we already were showing in the beginning of the 80s in the private gallery in New York. So it's nothing new for us, you know. Istanbul is just another city on a map.
Regarding this question.
Regarding this question, yeah, to be precise.
Yes. I just have one more question of my own, but then there might be other questions here. It's a more general question, really, than a sort of biographical question. It's a question about the, that we've touched on a little bit in the last few days, which is about the role of artists and public space. And I think what we've heard is it's really, really tough to generalise about the nature of public space across these very, very, very different contexts. But I wondered whether, I'd really like to hear your thoughts in terms of the invitation to artists to contribute to the formation of public spaces, particularly now in contexts in which there are redevelopments or new urban regeneration. And, is that, what's your opinion on that? Do you feel that that's a context in which an artist can have any voice at all, any role at all?
Yeah, I think it's a very important question. As you already stated, the context changed. I mean, being an artist in New York, or being an artist in Lima, or being it in, I don't know, Abu Dhabi is much different story. For us, I had to go to the beginning what I said, that we were aware that nobody else would do something for us if we would not do for ourselves. If we would not organize ourselves, we will be organized by the others. That's simple as that, you know. So basically, about that, in a way, you know, it's interesting because we have been working with Mary Jane Jacob. She was probably mentioned at the beginning. It's hard to overjump such a personality because we have been involved with, we collaborate with her on one big project when we travel over America. But she also wrote a text, and she kind of put it in the context of the public art about a project we did. We started in 2000, basically 2000, and we finished it about 2005-06, which I mentioned already, East Art Map, where we find out that certain things are not done by art historians and specialists. There is not such things as a history of contemporary art or art in Eastern Europe. And we said, what we can do as an artist? We said, we don't know how to do this, you know, but we know that this is missing. So we kind of throw the globe to the critics, to specialists, to the 22 different selectors from all Eastern Europe, and said, please propose, you know, what is possible, you know, what you think is the most important artworks, art phenomena for the last, for the period after the Second World War till now. So the idea was, I mean, the story was that the art of these respective countries, Slovenia, Croatia, Poland, was not, even there was not an art history. It was mostly local mythologies, and also this art were not connected. So there was nothing else like this. And with it, we get something what was like a first map, or some kind of orientation tool. It was something what was possible to do, you know. So basically, we took, in a way, when it was possible, a destiny in our hands. That's, you know, for the beginning, you know.
But so the answer to your question would be absolutely yes. No, and if you are following basically our, and I do personally take seriously Pierre Bourdieu, there is no other possibility either. Modernism was established as such. And in our case, that was openly so. So that is exactly what was given to us, offered to us. Not only to try, and here lies important difference. We didn't need to somehow ask for some space or to invent it, you know. Space that usually would be somehow decided upon, even worse, that would be very hardly given from hands from institutions, was somehow offered to us for free. We entered freely into territories where artists or even people involved in art from the West didn't cope with what is happening, because it was out of their perceptual scope. It's absolutely impossible in the West, something like that, isn't it? For us, it was possible. Not only that, can you imagine, as outsiders, and this was crucial for the project, it was not up to us, we did really small job, just organizational job. But the selectors that we invited to collaborate with us, they are extremely respectful people in their respective countries, and some of them, they are internationally important. So, and they decided, as specialists in their countries, to collaborate, to put trust in our hands, you know, their trust in our hands. Come on, you know, we could, you know, and that was really important in that project.
But we also frame it like this, that we also made it like this, that we published this book by MIT Press, because if you would publish something like, I mean, with the Slovenian small publisher, you know, nobody would read this book, nobody would get it. You know, so we were very much aware of this.
It's true.
Did we take too much of your time?
Other questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
For having us.